Here's a question. After last night, will the Republican establishment finally get behind Donald Trump, who now seems unstoppable on the Republican side?
Joining us right now with his reaction is the former presidential candidate himself and former Arkansas governor, Fox News contributor Mike Huckabee. In full disclosure, his daughter is working with the Donald Trump campaign. Governor, great to see you.
Good to see you, Brian. Great to be with all of you today.
Well, Governor, I don't have to tell you, there's an anti-Trump super PAC out there. They just enlisted Tim Miller, the communications director for Jeb Bush. They're desperate to stop Donald Trump. Your reaction?
Well, you know, I'm not endorsed a candidate. I'm not planning to. Yes, my daughter is now working with the Trump campaign. By the way, her name is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and Huckabee Sanders is not a proposed ticket. I just want you to know that.
Cute.
But here's what I think is happening. The establishment Republicans are all, you know, bedwetting over this, and they don't seem to understand that we have an election. Look, I just believe that at some point we need to recognize, if you want to oppose Donald Trump, do it. But don't pretend that somehow that all these voters who have gone out and voted for him are stupid. They're not stupid. I'll tell you what they are. They're angry, and they're angry at the very establishment who is going nuts because Donald Trump is doing so well. And they don't get it, that they're the problem. They are the problem.
You know what, Governor? And so I was clicking around all the channels, and you saw these party pundits who were on the television shows, and they were talking about how, okay, it's going to have to be a brokered convention, and then Trump's going to have the most, but then on the second vote, that's when we're going to be able to screw him, and somebody else can be president.
It is so ridiculous. Let's remember that we have an election process, not a selection process. If we're going to do a selection where some party bosses get together and they close the doors, lock the doors, and get behind and make the decision for us, then don't waste our time and money going through this long, lengthy, grueling process called an election. Just anoint somebody and let's be done with it. But that's why we have an election. And if Donald Trump is the nominee, then I challenge Republicans to get behind him. If it's Ted Cruz, get behind him. If it's Marco Rubio, get behind him. If it's Ben Carson, John Kasich. That's what we do as a party.
All right, I wanted to ask you about being a Baptist minister. Are you still with the church, or are you still a minister?
Well, no, I haven't been a pastor in 30 years. I mean, I'm a Christian. I haven't lost that, but I haven't been a pastor in almost 30 years.
Well, the evangelical vote. You know, as a Christian, too, I was a little bit surprised because Cruz has been backed by the Tea Party. I was shocked that Donald Trump was getting the evangelical vote. There's an editorial in the Washington Post saying that evangelicals are putting faith aside because they're just sick of losing. What do you make of all this?
Well, look, last night was a good night for Cruz in that he won Texas, Oklahoma, and Alaska. It was a bad night for Cruz because his rationale for winning the nomination has always been, I'm going to sweep South Carolina and the SEC states. Well, he basically lost all of those. So he won his home state and the state next to it. That makes it tough for him. But I think the big mistake that people have made is this notion that evangelicals are largely single, monolithic voters that vote one thing, and that's just not true. Look, they're the ones, they've lost jobs. Their kids can't go to college because they can't afford it. They've got adult kids back home with them. They're living the same life the rest of America lives, and what they are tired of is giving their support to someone who says, oh, we're with you, and when they get elected, they don't do one stinking thing to change Planned Parenthood funding, the Iranian deal, Obamacare, trade policies that kill their jobs.
But I want to bring
These are just Americans.
And we know Arkansas was a major victory because the governor was going for Cruz and ended up going to...
Well, he went for Rubio. The governor went for Rubio.
Rubio, I should say, and ended up going to Trump. But I want you to hear Paul Ryan yesterday at around noon. He scrambled to the microphone to say this and really used everything except Donald Trump's name. Listen.
I want to be very clear about something. If a person wants to be the nominee of the Republican Party, there can be no evasion and no games. They must reject any group or cause that is built on bigotry.
I'm going to get along great with Congress, okay? Paul Ryan, I don't know him well, but I'm sure I'm going to get along great with him. And if I don't, he's going to have to pay a big price, okay?
Yeah, your reaction to that? Ryan and McConnell saying something very similar?
You know, look, Donald Trump disavowed David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan so many times from Friday through Monday that, you know, the one time that he seemed to stumble a little bit, he said it was his earpiece. I don't know what he heard in his earpiece because I wasn't there. But I don't think there's any question that Donald Trump is not some kind of racist bigot, and for people to pretend that that's our big concern. And I thought Donald Trump last night in his press conference I thought that was a stroke of genius, and he came across very conciliatory. He was a lot nicer to Ryan than Ryan was to him, and Paul Ryan and other people in Washington need to recognize the reason that Trump is winning is because they feel like people in Washington have helped them lose, and they're sick of it. They've worked hard to get him elected, and when they get there, they don't do anything different, and I'll tell you why. 3 words. Follow the money. The donor class runs the political environment of this country, and people are waking up to that, and they are tired of it. And that's what this election is largely about. It's an overthrow of the government, and you know what we ought to be? Glad that it is a peaceful revolution with ballots rather than one with bullets. And we're having, in many ways, somewhat of a political revolution in the Republican Party and in the country.
Hey, Governor, even when you were running against him, you never attacked him. Governor Huckabee, thanks so much.
Good to see you guys. Thanks.
Good to see you, too. Thank you.